Ohayo.
Ohio.
Welcome to So Japanese Podcast that we talk all things about Japan from a Japanese
And a foreigner's perspective.
We are your host. My name is Ryusuke.
And I'm Matt. Thank you for joining us today.
ありがとうございます As always.
So today's episode
Mm-hmm.
is basically all about the most important shrine in Japan, which is Ise Jingu.
Ise Jingu.
The most important shrine. But we got to recap, I guess. Just want to remind people what exactly a shrine is and what we're referring to here. So, so what is a shrine? Shrine is associated with Shinto. So Japan's like indigenous and most ancient religion, really. And it's a belief system that respects like nature and worships like natural phenomenon, you know, a myriad of deities, and it's polytheistic. So there's gods known as kami, and that make up Shinto. And there are shrines to these kami all over the country. And according to the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, otherwise known as MEXT, there is over like 158,000 shrines around Japan.
Basically, I mean, just it's like a konbini. I think more than that.
God Kombini.
Yeah.
They come and get snacks.
Yeah, but it should be convenience because you wanna go pray every day.
And you'll have like a main shrine somewhere, like Inari shrine, but then there'll be thousands of Inari shrines all over because you know you go to your local one to pray. It's kind of like the local satellite like receiver for the god. So you go there and you pray there, and it's like it goes to the god via this little like outpost. There are also like 3 types of shrines, I guess you'd say.
I would say like a titles,
Like titles or designations for the type of shrine.
Yep.
And so you have Jingu, shrine title used for shrines directly linked to the imperial family, right? So, or imperial lineage. And then Taisha, that was originally associated with specifically Izumo Taisha. But is also used for, I've noticed that it's kind of translated in English as like grand shrine. So like I think Fushimi Inari Taisha is like the grand shrine of Fushimi Inari. And then you have Jinja, which is just sort of the general term for shrine. So like usually you'll see Nai Jinja.
Nai Jinja in your neighborhood or...
Yeah.
And then...
Local Jinja.
Because of Jingu, we just say it's Ise Jingu. We will talk about Ise Jingu, but it's actually Ise Jingu is the Jingu. The actual name is called Jingu. And all the Japanese people call Ise Jingu just because the Jingu, it's in Ise city.
Right, yeah. So it's just, you only really say Ise because that's where it is, but it's not actually called Ise. Yeah.
No. So like a lot of Japanese people call Ise no Jingu, which means the Jingu of Ise. But just because that we will talk about Ise Jingu today, but it's the most important and I'll say like powerful in a way shrine, and that's Jingu.
Right.
Yep.
So imperial shrine, or connected to imperial.
Yep.
And just as a reminder for people, so like in Shinto, there's no objects of worship that are like representative of the god in the way you see like Buddhist deities, statues around a Buddhist temple. In Shintoism, it's usually like natural objects that might be worshipped. So you'd see like a mountain may be regarded as like a home of a god, or rivers or rocks, and you'll see these things at Shinto sites.
Yeah.
But usually it's also like kind of more abstract things like natural phenomena. It could be like a storm. But there's also like human-like gods, or even humans and historical figures have been venerated and become kami. So like anything could kind of be kami, really.
But I think also they have like they have their own background. Like some is for sun, some is for wind, or some is for land, or like a forest or trees. That's Japanese people call actually Yorozu no Kami, which is like hundreds of thousands of millions of god surrounded in the area, or like in anywhere. Then all the Japanese people believe that every single object has soul, like has meaning, and that's all. Every single piece is the god of something. Yeah.
So that like, hence where George Lucas got his influence for this inspiration for like Star Wars. This idea of like the Force penetrating through everything. It's like a similar idea. If that helps people understand it better. And then you always see a torii gate. So like those two pillars with usually two pieces that are perpendicular to those pillars that go across it. So it's like a box kind of shape, and they are various sizes. You can see really tiny torii gates at small tiny shrines, and you can see massive enormous ones like the gate at Itsukushima in Hiroshima, for example.
The Hiroshima one famous, and then the other one is the 1,000 of torii gate painted red. Fushiminari.
Yes. Fushiminari, you might know. When you see all those red gates.
Yeah. For sure, like all the listeners, when you check the Instagram or even like TikTok, whatever, someone go there, post it, then you feel like, what is this? Like the gates are like all over, like you don't even see the end.
You don't. It looks like a tunnel, but it's actually not. There's like sometimes like a couple feet in between the gates. Actually, it's just if you get at the right angle, it just looks like a tunnel of red, which is really cool. And then you had this little fact here that I thought was really interesting about how sacred Jingu is, or how sacred Ise Shrine is. This is how important it is. It's so considered so sacred that like you're not allowed to fly over it directly. Even commercial planes apparently rewrote their paths. I've seen some old footage of like, I guess, a helicopter going around it. But I guess you're not allowed to pass over it.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
Cool.
But we'll dive into really describing what Ise is all about.
Jingu. Yep.
So Jingu is regarded as like the sacred heart of Shinto. It's like the sacred, like the soul, the center of Japan's like soul or heart of the country and culture, I guess. And it is located in the city of Ise, which is in Mie Prefecture.
Yep.
And it actually comprises of about 125 shrines, which are centered around the two main shrines, which are known as Naiku and Geku, or the inner and outer shrines.
Yeah.
So it is primarily dedicated, though, to, and some of you may know this, the Shinto sun goddess Amaterasu no Omikami. So we won't dive fully into Amaterasu's folklore
Yeah.
today,
we can make
but
one episode about this.
yeah, we'll talk about her later. But she is essentially like one of the most predominant, or the most prominent rather, kami or deity in Shinto. And part of the reason of that is that she is considered to be an ancestor of the imperial family. So she has really like there's a very significant, like, important role that she plays in like in Japanese history, or like the lore of Japan.
Yep.
And so the reason this shrine is like dedicated to her, and it was established over I think it was like over 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yes.
So like during the Yayoi period, and the emperor at the time, Emperor Suinin, ordered his, as the legend goes, his daughter, Princess Yamato Hime no Mikoto. I struggle with these long names.
Yamato Hime no Mikoto.
Arigatou gozaimasu. To seek out a permanent site dedicate to her, to Amaterasu. And so after about 20 years of searching the land, I guess my idea is she went around all of Kansai, it sounds like. She came upon the land of Ise in modern-day Mie Prefecture, and I guess where she heard the voice of Amaterasu, or Amaterasu spoke to her and told her that this is where she wants to reside. And so in the Ise area is where Kotai no Jingu, what is later became known as Naiku, or the inner shrine, was founded. And the sacred mirror of Amaterasu, which we'll talk about in another episode, one of the Sanshu no Jingi, or three sacred treasures of Japan, is said to be enshrined there. So that going back to what we said, there's no like statue of Amaterasu, but there is the sacred object in this case is her mirror, this ancient mirror.
Yep.
And so some centuries later, however, a second shrine was added to that site, that area, called the Toyoke Daijingu.
Toyoke Daijingu. Yeah.
Arigatou gozaimasu. AKA Geku, or the outer shrine. So Naiku, our Amaterasu shrine, is the inner, and Toyoke shrine, Toyoke no Omikami shrine, is the outer. And Toyoke no Omikami is the goddess of like food, clothing, housing. And from what I understand, is basically like, I forget to whom, but Amaterasu was like, I need help getting food, I guess is the idea.
Yeah, yes. And so Amaterasu showed up in one of the emperor's dream at that time.
Right.
And then she basically suggests this emperor that, like, I know the god is sitting on Tamba no Kuni, which is right now it's the Hyogo prefecture. So she suggests him to, can you bring this god to next me, so this god can start feeding me, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just interesting in concept. So you have basically these two shrines that are a few like several kilometers away from each other in this in Ise City, and one is like to the sun goddess, and the one to like the goddess of food. And so for many people, as we mentioned, like this is really the center of all, like of Japan and the belief system and Shintoism and imperial family. So what I find really inspiring or interesting about Ise is, or about Jingu, is the architecture, which is what we're going to talk about next. And it's fairly unique. It's quite amazing, actually, I think. So the architecture of Ise Jingu is a masterpiece of ancient Shinto design, characterized by how, like, its simplicity, as it's made entirely of hinoki, or Japanese cypress wood, And you might know hinoki, like it's used in a lot of things. It's fairly resistant to like weather and water, and you can see it used in baths, like onsen. So the whole thing is made of hinoki, but it has none of it is painted. Like you'll see all these red shrines a lot of the time, but Jingu is just plain essentially.
Yeah,
they don't put wood.
Any like coating or like painting or like just pure wood.
It does have golden accents, like there's little details from what I understand around it, like on the verandas and stuff that have gold on them, but other than that there's almost no color. Like you wouldn't notice until you get close. And it's very simple looking, but it's actually not simply built at all. It's a very, very, very old style of Japanese architecture. And it's essentially all made without nails. So, which is really crazy. Like, so it's basically like Japanese joinery. So each piece is designed to fit together. And stays together and doesn't need any other reinforcements from like nails or brackets or something like
it's
that.
It's like, this is a technique they have, like they make like a puzzle almost, and it's like a Tetris. It's more, obviously it's more like more complicated Tetris, but they make sure like by inch or even like millimeter perfect. So like when they slide in, it's just fit like two different wood piece. It became one large tree. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, like you'll see it. Even I think the torii is probably the easiest. Like even the torii, the fences, everything around Jingu is natural wood. And if you look at the torii, it's just like it's basically just like two whole trees that have been stripped of their bark. And then it's like, if you think of it like the pillar has a piece in the middle and the cross beam that holds it together is like slotted onto that. Like they cut a hole into it and they fit it on. It all fits together. And then, so that's like, it's hard to describe without looking at like the architectural plans. The architecture style, by the way, is Shinmei Zukuri. From what I recall.
And so for especially for Jingu, for Ise no Jingu, it's called Yuitsu Shinmei Zukuri. So like the only Shinmei Zukuri. So that means a little bit different as the other Shinmei Zukuri. Like they have like I think special way to build just for Ise no Jingu.
So it actually has even its own unique style.
Exactly.
And so, from what I understand, though, and I found this really interesting, and I kind of went down a rabbit hole, but the style of the building, and if you look at it, like it looks so simple, looks so plain. If you didn't know anything about Shinto, you might not understand it's a religious site at first. And part of the style of the building is based on essentially like ancient rice granaries or storehouses. So you can actually, like from the Yayoi periods, like this style of building comes from like over 2,000 years ago, and you'll see it's very almost like it looks like a simple house basically with thatched roofing, and it's on stilts or pillars, so it's like a few feet above the ground. So it's like never fully on the ground, and most shrines actually follow some semblance of this, I would say, like the inner shrines of most Shinto shrines, but this is very clearly like its own thing. And if you go to like Yayoi period archaeological sites like Yoshinogari Historical Park in Saga Prefecture, it's basically like a whole reconstructed town from that era, and they have all these storehouses there that you can see, and if you look at it, they look like the inner shrine buildings
like same style.
Jingu. But you can tell the difference in that the original storehouses look very rustic, whereas the shrine is like ultra refined. Like the thatched roofing is pristinely trimmed.
Yep.
All the details, the gables and everything are very it's like perfectly architecturally like aligned and designed and clean and pristine looking.
Yep.
And so and you can see like this style, like this kind of concept of a raised storehouse, like Ainu have raised storehouses. It's very prominent, and I think other rice growing countries in Southeast Asia as well. And the idea, so this is my little theory, like the idea, you know, first of all, you have a raised storehouse keeps all the contents, your important food stores away from rodents and away from water, right? You're not your rice isn't gonna get contaminated with water, and so if you think about it, when you think of a shrine, like you're keeping the god, you're keeping the away from these things, and you're above the ground, and also like when you think of, I guess it to me just makes sense because when you think of like, you know, Japan has been a rice-based centered culture, agricultural culture and society for thousands of years, and rice was even like a form of currency at one point, right? So like you can really see like basically how much like agriculture as a societal construct is like reflected in Shinto in this way, because and never mind the fact that like the other god next to the main god is a god of food. So like I thought that was really interesting.
I remember when I was eating rice when I was a kid, and then my mom always telling me like, don't leave even a piece of rice in your rice bowl, because every single piece there's a god in it. So if you leave one, that's also the old story about like telling kids that like you shouldn't waste any food. You do not leave any food on your plate or bowl, because of every single food also there's a god in it. So
you're eating the god.
But eating the god, but at the same time, because like the god as food, that means like
like respect it.
Respect it. Don't left it somewhere in a garbage.
That's it. I've heard other people, like other, like I think Korean friends and stuff, say like their parents would scold them like, you have to eat every grain, don't leave a single grain. But this idea to me is like even, it's like max guilt. Like
no, seriously,
there's like a life essence in each grain, and if you don't
I still
eat
remember that word, and then also that like I still remember from the story that like it says like the god sees everything, and I think it's a good thing. Like, why you need to waste food, right?
No, don't waste food.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just told I feel like every white kid anyway is told like there's starving children in Africa. You should appreciate your food, which is a much more like superficial way of looking at it, maybe, or like it's like those people are worse. You should feel better. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But so the next thing, probably the most, everything we talked about, I think is pretty unique to Jingu and Shinto, but I think this part is really interesting thing that I think is very unique to Japan and really I've never heard of it anywhere else, and so there's essentially a tradition when it comes to Jingu called Shikinen Sengu, and this practice is essentially involves the shrine buildings to be rebuilt every 20 years. So everything is dismantled and deconstructed and rebuilt on another site nearby. And this has been going on for like 1,300 years. At least specifically with Jingu anyway, or at Ise. And this also includes like other pieces of like parts of the shrine, including the bridge that goes over the Isuzu River. And so at each shrine site, like if you were to visit Naiku and Geku, you will see that beside each main shrine is a blank plot of land.
Like empty space.
Empty space referred to or called the Kodenshi. And this site is where the shrine previously was for the previous 20 years. And it'll be the site of the next shrine. So it's basically just these two plots side by side, and it's always alternating between these two plots every 20 years. And you might ask, like, well, why rebuild it every 20 years? And there's a lot of like thoughts around that. And the origins of the tradition, from what I understand, aren't particularly clear. Like, I don't think there's like I don't know if there's like maybe there's a first time this was ever recorded. But a few things to think about when you think about Japanese buildings. Like, there's no, like Europe has castles and cathedrals that have stood for hundreds of years or thousands of years, and Roman ruins and stuff like that. They're made of stone, but in Japan everything is made of wood, like everything. The only thing that lasts that isn't are the foundations of castles usually. And so for like a shrine, for even for temples, a lot of things, parts, either they burn down or earthquake or something destroys it, war, whatever. Irregardless of disaster, parts of the building have to be replaced at some point. And so these shrines, as we mentioned, they are not treated with anything. They're not painted. They're not preserved. Like, a lot of wood will be stained or have things applied to the wood to make it last as long as possible. These are just pure, raw, natural hinoki. So they will deteriorate eventually. And so it makes sense that you replace it at some point. But this has been ritualized in the as part of like a Shinto, I guess, like essentially there's like elements of it that are like matsuri, right? Like you celebrate the rebuilding of the shrine, and they completely get rid of the old one and rebuild it from scratch with absolutely new materials. And this sort of can symbolize in many ways like death, renewal. Japanese culture is very big on the impermanence of things, like sakura. So there's a lot of symbolism into that, and I think it's actually quite beautiful if you think about it. Like,
and then also because of in 20 years, the builders they passed on the technique for 1300 years. That's the way they keep the technique.
They preserve it.
Yeah, and so because it takes 20 years to build new one. So like the first builder, I mean like the builder, they joined this project and then they learn from someone. And then after 20 years, the time they will start teaching new people. So normally the builder has chance to do this project 2 times in their life. So like only 2 times, but because of the 2 times that you can learn, then you can pass down. So that keeps continue this culture, this technique won't go away, because what I read was pyramid. No one knows how to build it anymore. So if ever those the object is gone and it's done, but this technique is passed on like for 1300 years, so like they can keep do it forever.
I guess like I was thinking it's almost like a form of oral tradition. Like a lot of cultures have oral practices that keep on their histories or how to do certain things. So a lot of indigenous cultures, right? And so it's pretty amazing. Like Japan made this, like at least in Jingu's case, made this essentially a part of the ritual, part of the practice of the shrine. By we're doing it every 20 years, and this you ensure that the next generation will be able to continue this tradition and continue building it and know the techniques of how to build it, know how to like all the details and the history and the traditions of it. I think that's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, it's not actually like fully unique to Ise either. Like there's other shrines and temples that do this sort of practice, I think, or maybe just shrines, but it might be like longer, I think, like 60 years or something.
Yeah.
So I feel like Ise really narrowed it down. It's like this way we get 2 generations in, like, you know, passing this on. And I would say that like the aesthetic of Jingu, as we described, is very simple. Maybe I should have mentioned this before, but it's really like, I think, the origin of that idea. Like when people think of like the Zen aesthetic, when they think of like Japanese minimalism, like that is really the vibe of it. Like gravel, ground cover, all natural wood, very simple design, even though it is complex. That's really where that whole idea and this sort of like harmony with nature and everything too. Like I think that's really, that all comes together. And something else to add on to the architecture, the design of the shrine, specifically like Naiku and Geku, from what I understand, there's 3 rings, if you will. They're more like squares of fencing around each shrine. Three like stages of fencing.
It's
and
like it's kind of like a protecting or like
yeah. People can't just go up to it. There's sort of like pillars or like it's more simple fencing to more solid fencing, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So the innermost fence that surrounds the actual inner shrine itself is actually like solid wall. Like it's just wood planks. You can't see inside. You can see the tops of the roofs from outside, but you can't actually really see or go up to the fence and look in, even if you could get to the fence, which I don't think you're allowed to.
No.
You can't climb it or anything like that.
No.
Oh, please don't do that.
Yeah.
So if you're a pilgrim, like you're an average person coming to visit this shrine, you would, as a tourist or whatever, you can go to the gate of the 3rd fence, so the outermost fence, and so whatever you can see from that 3rd gate is all you get to see.
Yeah.
And like when you go to most Shinto shrines, there's some idea of this already, because you can usually... There's always an inner shrine. There's like the shrine building, and then there's like the shrine at the back behind the shrine building, which is like the actual shrine where the god is. And usually you can see them. Like if you walk around the shrine, you can usually see it to some degree.
Yeah.
And when you're praying at the shrine, you can usually see inside, because they usually have the doors open. You can see into it or see the other shrine through the back sometimes.
Yeah.
But in Ise's case, you're just so far much more removed, you know, as a common person, essentially. So like really, really, I think emphasizes this sacredness and holiness of the site and the sort of mystery around it, but also like the importance and its significance with regard to like the imperial family, because the Emperor of Japan, right, is always kind of like cannot be touched, like very like separate from the common person, so like closer to kami, so it's like really shows this sort of separation from the common person. Okay, so our next segment here, we're talking about the spiritual practices and festivals associated with Ise Jingu. So as we mentioned, there's a strong connection to the emperor, and so part of this connection has been maintained over the years through the tradition of having the head priest or priestess of Ise Shrine being a member of the imperial family. So I believe, from what I understood, like centuries ago, the emperor would kind of perform this role in some regard, and then I think it changed for a little while, but in recent tradition, it has to be a member of the imperial family that's in that role. And so whoever it is, they have to dedicate their lives to the practices of the shrine and kind of reflecting a profound commitment to their spiritual duties. So they're super committed to this. And the current high priestess of Ise Jingu is actually Princess Sayako Kuroda, Emperor Emeritus Akihito's only daughter. So she took on that role.
I remember her face. Yeah. She's really looks like the former emperor, because now the emperor is her brother, and then he
emperor,
also looks like actually her, and then his father, the Joko we call, but
I think I saw on the news recently that the princess was there. There was news I was watching. They were at Ise recently, and so like some of the rituals, from what I understand, is like every morning the priests and priestesses. So like there's also other Shinto priests and priestesses that work there, and they perform rituals to offer food and prayers to Amaterasu. And they've been maintaining this sort of like these rituals. Essentially, it's always like, I think it's once in the morning, once in the evening.
Yeah,
and they've been doing this for like, I don't know, 1,000 years.
Yeah, and then actually all these like priests or like whoever working in Jingu, they actually go like the special school to learn everything. Yeah, even the security guard, including.
Really? Wow.
Yes, they used to be all government job, but recently they switched to like just the actual normal job. I guess because like the emperor shouldn't be touching any sort of like government things.
Oh, okay.
I think that's why they switched to.
That's the idea.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but can you be like a regular Shinto priest at your local shrine and be like, I want to apply to work at Jingu or something? Or
if so,
do you
I
have
think
to just go for special training still, or like?
Yeah, I think if you already working at regular neighbor shrine, I believe you still need to go this special school to learn how you work at Ise no Jingu, because it's different. Okay. I mean, like you basically work for emperor too, right?
Yeah, right. So it's much more like seriously.
Yeah.
I guess it's like working at a local Catholic church versus the Vatican.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Essentially, you could think of this as the Vatican of Shinto. I don't know. That's a really weird analogy, and not quite, definitely not one for one. I just anyway, that just is how important Jingu is, I guess. Is what I'm trying to communicate here. And then there's the Kaname-sai festival or Matsuri.
Kaname-sai.
Kaname-sai Matsuri.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
This is actually it's basically like harvest.
Okay. Yeah.
Like harvest festival, but like obviously they appreciate that they get new rice every year.
Yeah.
And the first
that kind of goes back to we were saying earlier.
Exactly.
Agriculture being so important, rice being so important.
And obviously, it's rice. Then the first crop of rice every year, which is they normally harvest on October. And the first one, they bring it to Amaterasu Omikami. And then they appreciate and they pray with it. And they do all this type of matsuri, like, the festival for. Like,
yeah. I wonder if they make sake from it. No. I was like, I wonder if they'd make sake from it.
I don't know. Maybe, because I know like they used to have they used to make sake from the cooked rice, and then the one of the miko is like a part of priest. But normally it's priestess. A young female. It sounds disgusting, but they actually chew the cooked rice and spit it out into other rice, and then I believe like water.
Yeah.
So that gives extra yeast. Then they make a sake from it, out of it. Yeah.
I cannot imagine what that would taste like, but
I know.
Yeah, that's like the history of sake and its role with like
Yes.
or nihonshu or rice wine with Japanese Shinto practices. But yes, and so the last thing we have to talk about here is the pilgrimage experience. So basically, what's it like to visit Ise? And I guess it depends on if you're just a tourist or if you're actually a pilgrim participating in the Shinto practice in some way. Again, it's not like you'll see pilgrims around Japan for Buddhism a lot of the time, and especially like on certain routes, like the I forget what it's called in Japanese, but the 88 temple pilgrimage around Shikoku, for example. Like you'll see people, they're usually dressed in white. They have like hats. They carry books around to get like seals from the different temples. There's like similar type things for Shinto, but I don't think you usually see like a Shinto pilgrim and go like that guy's practicing Shinto. Like I don't.
No.
From my knowledge, maybe I'm wrong. Like, I mean, there's like Yamabushi or something, which are sort of a different thing, and that's a whole other episode. But, and unless you're like a priest, like it's not like you can really. It's not the same kind of idea of a pilgrim, I think, that you would think when you think of other religious pilgrims.
Yeah.
But so the guidelines roughly like visitors to Ise Jingu are follow like strict protocol. So you have to bow at specific points, and you do a lot of like things that you might be familiar with when you participate when you just go to a Shinto shrine in general.
Normally you bow before you enter the torii gate. Obviously you
bow
take the hat off and then bow. Yes.
And then do you still have to worry about entering on the right or the left?
Yes. Yeah.
So
people don't walk in the middle of like the street,
the torii,
the
path.
The
path.
path.
You don't go down the middle of the path. You go to the right side. I think it is right.
Yes.
And because the middle is regarded as you're giving room for the gods or the kami, so you're respecting that in that way. Of course, you see people like. Crowds go through, like, you go to like Meiji Jingu and in Tokyo, and there's like all these people everywhere, but that's the idea. So if you're actually following the Shinto protocols, this is what you would do. And then there's always a Teimizu. What's it called?
Teimizu, Tesuisha.
So you'll always see a little wash basin next to the entrance of a shrine. Even the smallest shrines usually will have some little basin with like a little spout trickling water and a ladle, and then you'll have like elaborate ones with like a dozen or 2 dozen ladles, like depending where you go. And so Ise has its own I would say matching hinoki wash basins, and you have to cleanse yourself.
Geku has one, and then Naiku is actually by the Isuzu River. Then after you enter, then there's a place that you can actually go down to touch the river. And then you can also use the water as like cleansing your hand.
You do the same thing, or do you bathe?
Same thing.
You don't go
same
in
thing.
it.
Yeah, same thing.
Oh, that's super interesting.
So
I wonder if that idea comes from there. I would have to research that. Like, I wonder if people would do it at a river originally, and then as Shinto became more,
Yeah, we need to research that.
Yeah, I'd like to research that. So like, every shrine you can have access to water somewhere to rinse your mouth and your hands.
And then the water purifies your inner. Yeah,
you're not supposed to drink it though.
No.
Drink it.
No, you don't.
You're just rinsing your mouth. It's just basically like, to me, it just almost is like you're coming from outside, doing wherever you are. You just like clean yourself up a bit before you start interacting with this sacred space. Like, just think of it that way. And and a lot of people regard, I guess, like people who are serious about it kind of see this as a very spiritual journey or experience, you know, and when they do this. And I think even just as a tourist, if you were to go, I've never been, but you'd feel, you know.
Yeah, I went.
Have you been?
Yeah. I went last year, and
Yes,
so
last
for
year,
for Ise Jingu, like a lot of people think like when you pray, you basically like trying to like say like I want to be better, or like I want to get this, or
some sort,
you always wish
request.
something, but at Ise Jingu, it's not about you wish something. You actually appreciate that whatever you have already, or whatever you went through, to basically telling God, thank you so much for having this, or having my life better, or like I'm so healthy, or like anything, because that's the Jingu, God normally taking care of you no matter what, so you don't need to wish anything.
Yeah. It's not transactionary.
No. Easy
like other religions, and I feel like you're not paying. You do offer money, like you don't have to offer a lot, just throw a coin in. But and I think that's, you guys talked about that in another episode. But you're there to pay respects, right?
Yeah, you're not there for getting something. You already have what you want, and that's why you're there to appreciate.
And I think the closest thing to getting something is like, if you want, you can go and buy a omamori or something.
Yeah.
That's like associated with that god, and it's sort of like, it's almost like this thing has been blessed, and so you're getting the protection of this kami, but or something, but you're not. And I look at it too, like you're supporting the shrine. Like if you buy like buy some sort of omamori, or like talismans or lucky charms type things, you're like you're supporting the shrine and its maintenance, its upkeep, and by doing that, and then you have a little thing that's sort of connected to it.
And also,
I mean, that's like, and you don't have to do that. You don't have to buy those things.
No. And then normally at shrines, they have a omikuji, but at Jingu, they don't have one. Why?
Oh, okay.
Because of they don't judge. You get daikichi, you get big fortune, or you get small fortune, or you actually get bad luck. Or they don't judge by that type of things. Like the Jingu believes that everybody is equal. So when you enter the Jingu, basically you already have a good fortune because of you're there. Yeah. And the Jingu itself is all power spot. There's no such a place like this spot in Jingu is the power spot, this spot is Jingu is the power spot. No, the entire space is the power spot. That's what they said.
Oh, that's interesting. But do they have that at other shrines? Like, you go over here.
Sometimes, because like you go to this shrine and then there's this stone statue or whatever, and then if you touch, or like if you do something, then you get some fortune. But
I've seen that with Buddhist temples where it's like a guy, you rub their eyes and it'll help your eye, or
but that's also why
that.
It's temple and shrine is different, and also how you pray at Jingu is like you bow twice. Like when you get the point that with the building, the god is in there. Again, like that Matt said, you cannot actually see actual building. There's a stairs you can go up, and then there's a big gate with wall, and that's the last spot you can get closer to the point. And then how you want to pray is 2 bow, 2 hand clap, 1 bow. That's how you do.
And that's specifically Jingu?
Yes, I think that the jinja normally.
But different jinja I've heard have different methods. Like I heard like it was Izumo or some other shrine in Hyogo. I think that's like 8
Different?
claps.
Okay.
Like you have to do like certain amount of claps and certain amount of bows.
Mm.
Like when every time I go to a shrine, I basically do what you described. So like I just do that same process.
And then another side note, it's actually outside of Ise Jingu, the Ise no Jingu. There's a like a old school buildings, and it's called Yokocho, like a small village, and they sell all different type of Japanese food. They even sell beer. They sell dango. They sell the one whole fish on a skewer. I ate that. It's like so ayu.
Ayu?
Yes.
Ayu.
So nice. I actually had an ayu and beer together. And also there's another shop that they sell sake, and that's actually local sake. And then also they do like a seafood barbecue with it. So me and my partner went there. Before enter shrine, we actually get there first. And then I got 3 different taste, sake tastes, plus the sazae tsuboyaki, the seasonal barbecue.
Oh.
So total was like $15.
Oh, what? That's
so
nice.
Cheap.
Holy
and
shit,
you
that's
get
cheap.
3 different sake you can try.
Wow.
So
And all local sake.
local sake, yes.
Okay.
So
this is like food tips for Ise.
exactly. So actually, yes, we all talk about Ise Jingu, how you go, how they built, but it's also a good part that like you can actually enjoy outside of Ise Jingu. Also, like the udon is very popular. It's called Ise udon. It's kind of little bit more like a soft udon, but when my partner eat, she was like, "Oh my gosh, this udon is like so like farm." No, I would say like more soft side, but also like farm. And then it comes with shoyu and egg yolk. That's it. So simple.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay. I've seen
so
a picture of it before, but I didn't actually know like what it's like.
It's so good. And also, like I said, the village itself is like very old school Japanese house village. So just walk like actually like the village is huge enough. Like I would say like couple hundred shops and like restaurants are there.
Okay.
So like you can get something. Obviously, there's a souvenir store too.
This is just the part of Ise City that's around the shrine you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. So, for food-wise, you can actually enjoy it as well. So, like, you go Ise Jingu, for sure you spend whole your day, and you still maybe don't have enough time to enjoy that place. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, so there's some pro tips for if you're gonna go visit. Pay your respects.
Yes.
Stay within the third gate. And eat some nice udon.
Yeah, and even
and sake.
Just walk inside the shrines. It's massive, and it's all about natures.
Yeah,
so it's actually really nice to just walk around, and then like there's a lot of shade because like huge trees are everywhere. Also like at least like 100 years old trees are everywhere. So like you don't really get hot. Also like the summer breeze. We went to like around summertime. It was really hot, but because like inside the forest, it's actually very nice and cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. You can go there in the middle of Japanese summers, which are horribly hot and humid. Like disgustingly humid. You will build a steak refuge amongst the gods at this ancient site. So that's so beautiful. I really want to go. I need to actually go. I'm so close.
You should definitely go.
I've been very close to Ise. I was at the very end of the Kumano Kodo.
Oh my! Wow! So just right there.
I could have found an excuse to hop over, but we were just doing like a day trip.
Yeah.
So I didn't have time to. We had to go back on the train, but I could have just, I wish I planned it so that we could have gone, or I wish I planned like another weekend to go all the way to Ise. But I was living like on the Osaka side of Wakayama, like just near Wakayama City, so like southwest from Osaka, southeast from Osaka. So I had to go all the way around like Kansai, the edge of Kansai to get to the end there, and I would have had to keep going to get into Mie. But I wish I had taken advantage of it. I was so close to it.
Yeah. So
next time.
That's all today's episode.
Yep, that's everything.
If you guys like this episode today, please make sure leave us a comment or give us 5-star and send us email, and that's it.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot about Ise today.
Hi.
And we'll be touching back on a lot of these things we mentioned in future episodes. So if you're into that, like, keep listening.
はい。ありがとう。またね。
ありがとうございます。